So if you watch a lot of my streams, you kind of know my opinion on the Steve ban, which ultimately I would not want Steve banned. I don't ultimately care if Steve is banned or not. If a business decides to ban Steve so that way they can get more business, I think that's a good idea. This is about Steve being banned at major tournaments and those majors being weighted the same as other majors. Okay? So when it comes to rankings, right? When it comes to rankings, I just don't think that should be a thing. I just don't think that should be a thing. You're literally excluding a group of players from a tournament, a whole tournament. They just cannot go to that tournament and end up getting ranked, you know, or end up getting points to be ranked. Whether it's Aquila, whether it's somebody who we just haven't heard of before that plays Steve, whether it's like Sword, Jake, so on and so forth, right? Like that just shouldn't happen. Because at the end of the day, you're not playing a tournament with the same rules. You're just not playing a tournament with the same rules. Because every other tournament will have Steve legal, but suddenly like some dude got top 8 at a non-Steve tournament, right? Yeah, there's no way. I don't think there's any way for this tournament to have even like close to the same weight, which I don't think is ultimately a problem because we've had tournaments that don't have full weight. I don't know if you guys know this, but invitationals used to be really overpowered back in Smash 4. Back in Smash 4. Invitationals used to be hella overpowered. Like hella overpowered. Like players would get ranked in the top 50 just for going to an invitational. This was PGR V2. And we were like, whoa, that's kind of dumb. So invitationals, from my knowledge, have kind of been toned back. If you looked at like certain players' player cards from the recent Lumi rank, I think Summit was an A+ event. But for the most part, what I know, invitationals are generally head-to-head focused. Why did that happen? Because at invitationals, only certain players can get points from invitationals, no matter what. While the majority of tournaments are open bracket, only certain players can get points from invitationals. So it's unfair to the majority of players when they can't get points for not being invited, you know? So again, I think the situation that happened was Conga in Smash 4. Conga ended up causing like crazy upsets at PAX West. I think it was PAX West 2016. I think it was in the later half of 2016, where everybody was like, yeah, this is kind of unfair. You know, a lot of people do complain about rankings, and then it just wasn't seen as a good thing. So I know I was a part of the PGR ballot at the first half of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And one thing that they told us was, you know, you don't have to count invitationals because invitationals, again, it's a little unfair, but you can use them, especially even more so when it comes to like head-to-heads or trying to determine if number 8 should be higher than number 9, you know, like those smaller stuff, not like the grand scheme things. And to me, that feels very similar to a Steve ban tournament, you know? Not everybody is allowed to get points because you're excluding people. You're literally excluding like a group of players from being able to compete at the tournament. Like, that's a huge deal. That's a huge deal. Like, I don't think there's a world where Steve ban tournaments are weighted the same as a major. I don't even think they should be. I mean, I guess they should be advertised as a major because it'll still be a major in some sorts. But when it comes to the ranking, I don't think it should be the same thing. Invitational should never count. I think they can count to a degree. But not to the same degree as like the big majors. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, open brackets to me are generally the staple of. We look at current ultimate rankings, right? Every tournament for the most part is open bracket. Invitationals have been counted a little different. If you ban Steve from a bracket, that doesn't feel like an open bracket. It doesn't feel like the same foundation as literally every other major. It makes sense when you look at the experience of a tournament. Rankings don't give a shit about how good of an experience you have at the tournament. All right? Rankings do not care. They literally do not care. Like, end of the day, rankings is about determining, you know, how much do you rate this tournament? How well did X player do? And who do we think is the best player or second best player, and so on and so forth. Doesn't care about like what tournament had the best spectator experience or the best bracket experience. You know, those aren't things that you take into account when it comes to rankings. And I think it's perfectly fine if people want to run Steve ban tournaments. I don't think it's perfectly fine if Steve banned tournaments hold the exact same weight as non-Steve banned tournaments. Even more so when majority of the tournaments are Steve unbanned tournaments. You're competing on two different playing fields. Like, that's just two different rankings, two different, like, weights. You know what I'm saying? This question of what's more important, I mean, I think that's fair. You know, I think that's perfectly fair. Like, what do you value more as the tournament organizer? You know? Like, I think having Steve banned so more people could go to your tournament, which is, I think, a great approach. I think a lot of people have been doing that locally. I think that's a good idea. I've never really had problems with that idea. But when it comes to holding a major tournament, a tournament that has weight when it comes to the rankings, what's going to happen, right? Are you going to advertise your tournament as a major? Is this tournament going to be weighted as a major? Because these are questions that are very, very important, you know? This is something that should be answered before the tournament decides that, like, Steve is banned. Exactly what Max said, because I don't think this is good either. I don't think this is good either. If you are a Steve main in contention for global ranking, we have received confirmation that competing here will not hurt your standing. But that means it still affects rankings, no? But what is the weight? How much is that weighted? Because that's just not fair. That's literally not fair. Like, why does it affect everybody else's ranking, but it doesn't affect the Steve player's ranking? So my solution is you weight it similar to an invitational. Who bans Steve? So this is happening at Let's Make Moves Miami and Let's Make Big Moves 2024. You get a free pass. It's not about getting a free pass. You cannot enter this tournament if you play Steve with your main. You just cannot. I don't think that's good. Isn't it similar to banning a stage? No, it's not similar to banning a stage. Banning a stage does change the meta and it does change certain matchups, but it's not as drastic as banning a character. So the Steve mains don't have their ranking affected, but that doesn't fix the solution. That doesn't fix anything. You still give other players a free tournament to go to without Steve that could be weighted the exact same as a major with Steve. That's not fair. That's not good. Like, you shouldn't be able to do that. So I talked to Charles about this, talked to Light about this, I talked to EE about this. Ultimately, my stance is, like, again, if Steve gets banned, I don't mind. I want Steve to not be banned, but I'm not the guy running tournaments, okay? However, if Steve gets banned, I want it to be done right. I don't want Steve to just get banned and then people are like, yeah, you know, Steve players, that sucks, right? Or like, yeah, you know, like, we're getting more people, awesome, Steve ban is good, you know? End of the day, when it comes to, like, there's just a big problem when it comes to rankings. When it comes to the rankings, how are you going to weight a Steve banned tournament versus a Steve unbanned tournament? And I feel like this type of a question should have been answered, and it should have been answered publicly a lot more before, like, you know, me talking about it. I do pay a lot of attention to what happens on Twitter. I pay a lot of attention to what people, like, talk about. I follow a lot of Smashers. I follow a lot of people who talk about these things. This should be a question that I should already know the answer to. And Max saying, if you're a Steve main, but if you compete here, it won't hurt your standings. I think that makes things worse. I think that makes things completely worse. Because that means that they talked about it and they're like, yeah, you know, this is fine. And I just don't agree. I don't agree. I don't think that's fine at all. I think there's nothing good about running a Steve major, but the Steve players can't get any points, but everybody else can. I think that's terrible. I think it's garbage. There's an H-box. I think it's fine. I think it's fine on coin boxes. Okay, I think it's fine on coin boxes. I think it's fine on a local level. But when it comes to a major tournament, when it comes to like a C tier plus, D tier plus, whatever, it should be a different conversation. It should be a different conversation. Like, Steve and Kazuya getting banned at like Texas locals doesn't ultimately affect like the rankings. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, you know, Loki asked, what if the vast majority ban him? I think that is a good question. I think ultimately, one of the things that have plagued Smash tournaments is that we don't have universal rule sets, whether that's stages, whether that's DSR versus MDSR, whether that's character first versus stage first. You know, there's a lot of differences when it comes to tournaments. However, for the most part, they're minuscule enough to where it doesn't affect the outcome of a bracket super duper drastically. A Steve ban affects the bracket super duper drastically. Because even from like the example I'm using right now, because it's a little recent, I watched Light at Super Smash Con go last stock, last hit with a Steve player whose name I do not know, remember, and I might not ever see again. I know what you guys are thinking, haha, Steve's so OP. Get that out of your head. It's literally irrelevant. It's the fact that it can cause a giant upset, and it cannot cause a giant upset. But let's say we just randomly decide to ban Bowser Jr., right? Okay, then suddenly the things that the Bowser Jr.'s would do doesn't matter. Like, it changes the whole bracket off the rip. Let's say we ban Sheik, so on and so forth. You ban a character, that character has no representation in the entire bracket. Changes the whole bracket. Changes the whole bracket. You know what I'm saying? How do you solve the issue? My idea is you treat Steve banned majors to the same way you treat invitationals, where it's not weighted the exact same as a major, but you can use it for certain, like, discussions when it comes to rankings. But again, you're not competing at the same tournament. For me, I beat Spargo at Summit. Is that the same thing as beating Spargo at a major? I don't think so. I definitely don't think so. I didn't have to work to get to him super much. Like, I literally just spawned against Spargo in bracket. That usually doesn't happen unless I'm, like, unseeded or something, you know? Invitationals being tournaments where only certain people can get points. I feel like a Steve banned tournament can be treated the same way. That's how I would feel. Is that the perfect answer? No. Is that an answer? I think it'd be good. But I do think weighting a Steve banned tournament the same as a Steve unbanned tournament is just not fair. I just don't think that's good. But yeah, from what I know, there are ranked players that do want him banned. There are influential people in the community that do want him banned. It's not just like the O2ers, I'll be honest. Like, I'll go to tournaments and talk to people about their opinions because I'm pretty interested. You know, should only top players' opinion hold weight? When it comes to rule sets, probably, in my opinion, not that it holds the whole weight, you know? Like, I do think getting the general idea of people going to your tournament, I think that's fine. I think that's, like, a decent idea. But I do think there is a big deal when you end up making a rule set change so drastic that it can affect rankings. Because when it comes to affecting rankings, you know, I think the people who are trying to get ranked or who are ranked have a little bit more stake in that than the people who aren't. What is it? Let's Make Moves Miami is pretty soon. And this isn't just about that, because Regen also happened last weekend, and it was a Steve banned EU major. It was a Steve banned EU major. And it already happened. It already happened. And I don't know how that's going to be weighted. I think the top 1% of the community has a greater understanding of how rule sets affect competition. So I think their opinion matters at least a little more than the rest of the community. However, you know, at the end of the day, I think getting a poll to understand what, let's say, 80% of the people going to your tournament feel is a good idea. I personally wouldn't do it. I like to create rule sets that are catered more towards, like, the top 1% of the community. You know, I wouldn't want, like, certain stages that are kind of dumb to exist. Certain, like, the timer, certain stage lists, character first. You know, these things are not things that overall affect, like, the mass. It's a lot more of, like, the top heavy. Yeah, I do think Max having the, you know, people going, not going, and maybe going. I think a good question that could be asked is, would you go to this tournament if Steve was banned? I think that's a good question to ask, and I do wish that Max asked it in his poll. Like, if Steve is banned, are you going to my event? If Steve is not banned, are you going to my event? I think that's, like, the most important statistic if you're trying to run a tournament and gauge interest based on, like, a ban or not. You know what I'm saying? If they didn't ban Smash 4 Bayo or Brawl Meta Knight, people will eventually adapt. I think Smash 4 Bayo and Brawl Meta Knight were significantly more problematic than Steve, but the communities were a lot smaller, and there was also a lot less on the line. Like, Smash Ultimate tournaments are the biggest tournaments for Smash since Brawl, not counting Melee. Like, Brawl 4 Ultimate is clearly the biggest. So I think Steve's legality is much more in the air. I also think the community is just a lot bigger, so there's also a lot more disdain. Like, if Smash 4 wasn't this big. There was Bayo ban, like, locals and stuff. It never reached a major scale, if I'm not mistaken. But I could imagine if Smash 4 existed today with this size of the Ultimate community, Bayonetta probably would have gotten banned. What's the biggest tourney? Super Smash Con just happened. I think it was 2,500 entrants 2 weeks ago. So Ultimate is still doing, like, really good, you know, like, entrance-wise. I'm simply saying, you know, if Bayo was unbanned today, or if Bayo existed today, I do think she could probably get banned, probably to the same degree, if not worse. You think the majority of people who want Steve banned would still go with Steve unbanned? I kind of feel that way too. But I don't fully agree. Like, for example, I think Ling recently tweeted, so Ling went to Shine. If you don't know Ling, amazing Peach player from New England. Ling went to Shine, which was a Steve unbanned major. Yeah, I don't know Ling's Twitter, but it's something along the lines of, this is the last Steve unbanned tournament that I'm going to. Well, there are players in the upper echelon of, like, players who are refusing to go to Steve unbanned tournaments. Isn't the big difference? I do think PMLG is pretty ban-worthy. When it got revealed, I was pretty on the Steve ban train. I think that's really unfair, but it hasn't shown any type of meta prominence anywhere. I don't think I've seen it in one tournament set at a major that I've watched, which isn't a lot, but you know, I have watched a lot of Steve. It's not like a very common thing, you know. But yeah, when I talked to Charles about it, Charles's thought process on the Steve ban or not was that the Steve players suck and that they're not trying to win. Otherwise, they would just clearly be winning. I don't like that point of view. I don't like the hypothetical, because at this point, we're multiple years into Steve's metagame, and Steve is not showing like that type of prominence. So that's kind of where I'm at. If every tournament had Steve banned, that wouldn't be an issue, because then that's the standard. But that's kind of not where things are right now. And I think this should get addressed sooner than later, because people would start throwing around Steve bans left and right and being like, yeah, you know, but the Steves don't lose points for these tournaments, so that's fine. But that's just not fine. There's nothing fine about that. The only way it's fine is if you just, in my opinion, just don't care about the Steve players getting tournament points, which a lot of people won't. But sadly, I just want things to be a little more... I want it to go through the due process. If you guys want Steve to get banned, you got to put in a little more work, because you got to make sure that you cover like those types of bases. What's going on? I'm talking about the fact... Are you available for a quick call? I can give you a TLDR in 60 to 90 seconds. Hello?
Yo, because I don't use Smash Twitter, and I have every single
you're good.
troll muted on Smash, except you.
The thing is, I'm creating the problem. All right, I'll admit it.
Okay.
I'm creating the problem, but I think it needs to be created. So Steve ban majors are popping up a little more.
Was there another one that came up recently?
Well, Regen happened last week. LMMM is gonna have Steve banned, and then Steve's also going to be banned at LMBM next year, right?
Oh, what the f***? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Max ran a poll asking people what they thought, and then yeah, the poll said ban Steve, so Steve's gonna be banned.
Damn.
Yeah. Ooh.
Of
Anyways,
course, people on Twitter would say that.
Yeah, but then he did it Google Forms, so you know they have to do a few more steps.
That's not any different.
I think that Steve banned tournaments should not be weighted the same as Steve unbanned tournaments, because you're getting rid of the potential to win points from an entire player base. I got confirmation that you won't lose any points for entering the tournament, and I just think that's I think that's super duper. Yeah, you won't lose any points. Exactly. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Can I just claim that I'm a Steve main for Let's Make Big Moves? Can I just practice only Steve for Let's Make Big Moves and then go be like, oh, I can't play Steve?
That's something I haven't even thought about. But that's the thing. That's the thing. There's a lot to think about. Well, now they kind of they made an update statement today, and they said that they're going to continue weighing it the same for the rest of the ranking system. And same thing, where like, you know, Steve players won't lose points if they do attend.
It's just bad. Like, how do you claim what a Steve player is?
Yeah, which is another gray area. You know, like I like the point you brought up, where it's like, you know, what if I am trying to be a Steve player as Cosmos, and then you go to an event?
All right, well, I'm gonna be listening.
Yeah, that's pretty much the TLDR. Again, I think I'm creating the problem, but I also like I've been on the wrong end of rankings.
Right, me too.
Yeah, but I don't think I've ever been like.
I was there when Panda Global made me rank number 11 because they didn't want PG bias.
That's funny.
And
oh my god!
Like they literally told me.
That's hella funny. Yeah,
it wasn't for me.
I've been on the wrong side of a lot of rankings, but I don't think I've ever been like robbed as hard as the robbery I'm seeing committed right in front of me.
Yeah.
Like, dude, imagine you just can't go to a major with your main. Like, you're just not
that's
allowed to. But everyone else is. Everyone else can get points, but you can't. Dude, I don't.
That would suck if like you were like rank 11 in the last.
And you just need one more tournament. Just one. Just one. Like, dude, everybody's going crazy amount of entrants, but you don't get points because we said so. But you don't lose points. You don't lose points. What's a P tier? P tier is the highest tier. It's higher than S.
Yeah.
Premier?
I just know that a lot of people are going because it's Luminosity, so they're definitely gonna have Luminosity players going. There's other people going too.
They say you don't get points. They said you don't lose them.
Going a cola.
But you don't get points with your main P-Test.
I guess I kind of get it because like it was theoretically double Steve Grands because like Owen wasn't Grands even though he got kind of shafted by secondary. But like Cola won and he can't even defend his title because
that also sucks. What do you mean? He could just enter as Akola Aegis. Duh.
Yeah, he could.
Duh, Cosmos. His new name, he can still play in the tournament. I'm hanging up.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Wait, I have a question. Since you said that, because you said that Steve players don't lose points.
Yep.
Steve mains don't lose points.
Yep.
So if Akola enters a tournament as Aegis, does he just not get punished but only gets rewarded if he
What
does
a
well?
great question, Cosmos.
Damn. All right, bye.
Bye. What do you think about this, Tyler? Should we call? You want to call for like a little bit? I'm not gonna call for like a little bit. I'll call for a little bit.
All right. So I mean, I only just saw people talking about this today, the whole ban Steve thing. The first thing I want to talk, I don't know what you've talked about. I just saw that you were talking about it like an hour ago. You've been talking this whole time, a whole hour.
About here and there. Not too much about the ban itself.
Just like quick field here.
Yeah. If a tournament has Steve banned, I don't think it should be weighted the same as a typical major.
Okay.
In terms of rankings.
Well, I agree with you at first, but I'm curious as to what other communities would do.
I feel like generally they would have it be a little more standard, I think is the word I'm looking for.
So they wouldn't follow what we're saying? They would just be like, F it, one rankings?
No. I think that if they were to ban somebody, it would happen at more than just like a handful of tournaments.
Oh, true. I would agree with you. I hate always kind of touching back on this topic once every 3 months where Smash needs a unified rule set.
Yeah, not
having a unified rule set sucks, because if it was just like, oh, everything Steve related is banned for like 6 months or something, then I would be like, sure, whatever, just everything's weighted the same, because that would just be the easy way to do it. However, that's never going to happen, because I literally don't know. I wish I understood why there wasn't a unified rule set, or why people want to be unique and be like, yeah, WarioWare's legal and hazards are on. So,
yeah.
Whatever. A conversation that's happened 50,000 times. Before, during, and after Shine, we're just like, I dropped out of the tournament because I don't want to play against Steve, or...
Yeah, I brought up Ling. Ling ended up doing that.
Yeah. I could not think of like a way to vocalize why I feel this way, but I think that is super made. Like, I can't, like I understand the frustration, right? I dislike Steve. I think he's overtuned, and obviously anyone with a brain thinks he's insanely broken. Maybe it's my inner abused Nintendo-loving competitor brain. I just think they're cowards. They just shouldn't, like, it shouldn't bring them to the point of wanting to quit.
Yeah. On my completely unfiltered opinion, I think most of the people who want Steve banned or who aren't competing because of that are either the people who want Steve banned are bullies, for the most part, or babies.
Bullies or babies?
Yeah, I feel like usually you're one or the other.
I'm trying to think of more excuses, like more bullies, but I see more babies than anything else.
I do see a lot of babies, but the bullies are more so like, we're gonna ban Steve, and we don't care what the Steves think.
Yeah.
And usually they don't have like a sound argument either.
Usually coupled
they're just like, yeah, we don't care about what the Steves think. Why should we?
Yeah.
You know?
It's usually coupled with like, let's see them do good. Like, they would never do good with another character. Haha.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, neither would you, bro. It's like...
One of the examples I brought up earlier was like, dude, if Bowser Jr. was banned, like, for no reason, dude, like, you know, the Bowser Jr.'s wouldn't be performing, but like, that's a whole like group of people, you know what I'm saying?
I think if you ask most top players, we'll give you kind of the same answer, where we would never advocate for Steve being banned, and we would never like protest any tournaments or really whatever. But if you ban Steve, no one's gonna complain. Is kind of the thing, unless it's you apparently. But
that's the thing. Regen European Major happened last weekend, right? I don't know if they're gonna weight it the same as another major, but the tournament already happened. So, you know, what if like suddenly they do decide like, oh yeah, we're not gonna weight the tournament the same as the Steve unbanned majors, but the people at Regen didn't know this ahead of time, you know?
Yeah, so that sucks. I want to like think of an argument more than just like rankings, right? Like kind of like if you forced me to pick banning Steve or no, I would just say don't ban him. Like he's broken obviously, but there has to be a best character in the game regardless of how big the gap is. And
that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, there's
like,
going to be something ridiculous, something broken, like, and Steve is both.
He's the best. But I personally don't think that there's a problem with having a best character and having a meta around the best character, you know? Like, sometimes you got to be able to keep up with the best character in order to, like, perform well in a tournament. I think Killjoy was the most picked... This is a little bit of a tangent. Killjoy was the most picked agent at VCT. Imagine if they're like, yeah, let's just not play with Killjoy in the game. You know, like, she's a little too over-centralizing. Let's just not play with Killjoy. But it's like, she's just good, and people are just gonna pick her. Like, you wanna fight the meta, fight the meta.
Yeah, he's definitely over-centralized. I think every region has like one or two good Steves.
They're around, yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of part of the problem that a lot of people have with Steve is that he's easy.
They are everywhere. They're not everywhere at like the super duper top levels, but they're everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's the problem that most people have is that he sucks for viewership. He just sucks to watch. He sucks to play against. Just everything sucks about Steve. But at the end of the day, it's who do you want to make happy? Like the minority being the Steve players, or the majority being literally everyone else.
Yeah, I just don't know like where it stands on the rankings because I feel like that is a very big deal. Because yeah, again, like if I went to a Steve ban tournament, and then my wins didn't count as much because Steve was banned, I'd feel kind of I'd feel like I got wronged in some way, you know? If I didn't know ahead of time. It's kind of like, you know, typical rule sets. Like, oh god, this tournament has...
Lilat.
Kalos, or Lilat. I think, like, some online tournaments have Lilat. I entered an online tournament once and Castle Siege was legal.
Oh, dude, dope.
And I got counterpicked to Castle Siege and I lost.
Whoa. I cannot tell you how many times I roll up to a tournament and I go, why is it 3 bans? Or why is FD a counterpick? This is weird.
Yep. Is this full DSR?
Dude, I'll be in top 8 of a major. I'll be playing against like Light or something. I'll look over to like one of the TOs. I'm like, yo, is there DSR? Because no one f***ing knows. We just assume it's 2 bans DSR.
We all have no idea.
Yeah, we just show up. Like you could say shame on us, but like you're right. There is no but. You're right. Oh, like what you were touching on, like if the tournament matters as much, like there's also no way to like know if you would even play against a Steve.
That's the thing. It changes the whole bracket, like the entire bracket. You remember Paris almost lost to that random Steve at SmashCon?
Yeah.
That would never happen. And that's like round 1 pools.
I think what a lot of top players aren't ready for, and it's been talked about among top players too, where the meta is now absolutely shifting towards you need multiple characters to play this game. You can't just be like a one trick. It's very hard.
Yep.
If you look at all of like the top 8ers, they all at least have like 2 characters except for the Steve players.
Yeah, some type of a counter pick.
Yeah, but like top players don't want to conform to the meta where they need to play 2 characters. Because that also means they need to put more time into the game, which not a lot of people do. Yeah.
I tell everyone, I'm like, if I was competing a lot right now, I'd play Cloud. I have a 1 in like 5 set count against Steve. That's pretty bad. The one Steve I beat, I immediately lost to another one afterwards.
GG's dumbass.
Like,
should have played Cloud. Damn, everyone's about to pick up Zero Suit, dude, finally.
Oh, yes, it's my time.
Oh,
it's Henry's time.
Back, baby. He's better than ever. I mean, no one's going to pick up Zero Suit. That character sucks. Oh, don't tell me, dude. How much longer does it need to be Nova's
not if
ults?
Not if I play online.
Oh, you're gonna play
That's
online.
that's the
seriously?
one thing. No, yeah, that's the one thing why I stopped picking her up. I was like, I'm not gonna play this character online.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. See, chat.
Like,
You hear that?
they're
That's
so,
why I don't
they're
want to play
so
Zero Suit.
bad online. Okay, what do you think about a poll deciding whether Steve will be banned or not?
That's stupid. Like a public poll, like on Twitter.
Well, I think they did Twitter at first, but they changed it to Google Forms.
Dude, that's the same thing, basically. It's just extra steps so, like, the 8-year-olds won't take them.
What you can boot up is I'm gonna send you an image of the tweet that I'm gonna make. And I want to know what you feel about that.
Sure, let's see it. That's an agreeable tweet. That gets a like from me, maybe even a retweet if I'm feeling nice.
Ooh, we got the Mars approval. I'm gonna
Yeah.
send it. I'm gonna send it sooner than later.
I mean, yeah, like, if there are going to be, like, a mismatch of tournaments, it's already weird that there are tournaments that have different stage lists that are weighted the same, but...
I agree. But I think it is a little less negligible or a little more like ignorable than like a whole character ban.
I agree.
Okay, because Roy10 says I'm excluding the fact that they did it based off of people who attend LMBM.
Like, he wants to exclude people that are going to the
No,
tournament?
no. He did it based off people who are going to the tournament. I don't think it changes my opinion.
Oh, obviously they're not going to say ban that shit. I don't want to lose to it. But, yeah, doing a public poll for this kind of stuff is just bad. I think, like would you ask the general public about, like, changing the rules of football? Like...
This is how I feel.
It's the dumbest shit ever. Like, ask the professionals. And it doesn't have to just be, like, the professional players. It could be, like, the TOs that are, like, you know, integrated in the scene for a long time. Or, like just long-time veteran community members that, like, genuinely have, you know, best interests in mind.
I've lost tournament sets because I lost rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, because of the stage
So,
list.
Yeah, so, like, I think my opinion is a little more, like, experienced, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think asking, like, the, let's say, like, ranked players going to your tournament, or, like, the top 32 seeds, what they think. I think that's pretty good. I think asking everybody is a little different.
Yeah.
The public's competing with the professionals, sure, but I don't think that means that their opinion holds the same value when it comes to the rule sets of the tournament.
Bro, I hate people that say that shit, that, like, spectators' opinions matter just as much as the players. It's like, you're sitting at home. I paid thousands of dollars to be here. I like the idea of having, like if you're PGR, you qualify for, like being a part of, like, the panelist that, like, makes the unified rule set or whatever. And it's just completely optional. Because, like, dude, if I'm gonna be honest, sure, Light's a professional, but his opinion is he's a dumbass. I don't think he knows anything.
I was also saying that, where it's like, I don't value every top player's opinion the same.
Oh yeah. Absolutely not. But he gets his say because, you know, he has his place in the community.
I asked him how he feels too, and I definitely did not agree with what he said.
Well, God, do I ask? Do you remember?
I do remember.
Uh-oh.
The general idea is he thinks this is fine because it causes less problems if it's fine.
What is that? Like it's done? He thinks it's just the controversy's over if Steve's banned? Like, he thinks it's the solution?
Something like that.
Okay, I can infer. It's topics of conversation. I remember, like, at the end of Smash 4, they were like, this time for sure, guys, we'll get a unified rule set. And then...
Yeah, and then, like...
No one...
I was complaining in the kitchen earlier with Charles and EE. I was like, dude, there's no way we f***ed up again. And Charles started saying, I'm going to start talking about rule sets right now, because there's no way we're messing up in the next Smash game.
No, we're gonna. I have zero faith in, like, any, like, structural integrity, I think is the words I'm looking for here, but there is going to be no body of Smash. There's no one who just
I
makes
feel like
the
it keeps
rules.
getting worse.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, somehow it keeps getting worse.
The
But I still think, end of the day, if you want people to enter your tournament, I don't care if you ban Steve or not. I think that's a good reason to ban him. Actually, it's probably the best reason.
Wait, what's the reason?
We want more people to enter our tournament, so we're gonna ban Steve.
Was that?
I think that's the best reason.
Yeah, I don't think that works, but I think people are just gonna enter that tournament regardless because we're all abused.
I also think that. Dude, we just had SmashCon.
Yeah,
We
that
just
was
had SmashCon.
so many entrants.
Mm-hmm. Like, that was insane.
All right, I appreciate your time, man. You have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. I hope recovery is going well.
It's going great. Catch you later.
That's good.
Hopefully see you soon.
Alright, I'll see you, dude. Alright, that was Mars. Mars, ladies and gentlemen. He was asleep? No, I think he was just warming up for top 8. I think he just got owned in top 8 too. Which was pretty funny. If we see more Steve Van tournaments for data, I think that'd be cool.